Life as You Own It with Mark McDougald and Craig Miller.
Remember, you got questions, we've got answers. 800-492-4664. You may not take the time to educate yourself about the single largest investment and opportunity you have, that investment in the roof over your head in real estate.
We talk about your home, financing, making investments in real estate. We give you the facts, folks.
You know, it's just good old-fashioned horse sense that we like to talk about. And we also throw in some other horse stuff, too, just for fun.
All right, I'm Mark McDougald, and Craig Miller is... he's on the operation table, so we give our best to Craig. Unfortunately, he had I don't know what he was flexing or something, but had surgery on his bicep today. Did you know that, Dave Brown?
I'm unfortunately aware of that, yes.
And this is the voice of Dave Brown filling the, we'll call it the baby shoes of Craig Miller. And we are Life as You Own It. We're just two guys talking mortgage and finance, doing it each and every weekend. And we have the capable participant, Dave Brown, today. Who, Dave, again, thanks for stepping in. I just jumped right in there and got you talking and warmed up. You ready to go?
I'm ready. I've got everything you've told me to say, I'm going to say. So I'm good to go.
Yeah, you're good at that. Well, folks, if you're checking us out for the first time, we appreciate you giving us a try. We hope that you come back again and again. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your neighbors, because we are moving across this great country of ours. We have just added a couple new affiliates, KFNN in Phoenix, Arizona, 1510 AM and 93.3 FM. Thank you and welcome to the family. Phoenix, we're excited to be there, and this is now over 35 new affiliates in the last 3 months, so we're growing. Please check us out. Check out our podcast. If you're driving through a city and you can't get us on your radio station, go to iHeartRadio. You can check us out, and please mention to your call your local radio station. Demand Life as You Own It, so you can hear us in the crisp, clean radio tone that you receive as you're driving down on your highway. So, all right, Dave, you ready to do it?
Let's do it.
Got a big show. This is part 3 of our 3-part first-time home buyer series. You're buying your first home? Okay, maybe it's your second, third, or fourth. We'll discuss 6 mistakes that will likely ensure you don't get your best deal. The art of negotiation, folks. Speaking of the Dawn, my wife Felicia was on season 4 of The Apprentice. Yes, and what was her consolation prize? Me. Sucks to be her. A good friend of hers and fellow contestant on the show was Clay Lee, a high-flying realtor from Texas. I was speaking to Clay the other day, and he offered up his team member and 20-year real estate veteran, Renee Lukes, who will join us shortly. She has a hilarious first-time homebuyer story and some great tips from her 20 years of helping first-time homebuyers. All right, unlike wine, houses don't necessarily improve with age. Now, Dave, you're kind of a wine connoisseur, right?
I do enjoy a glass of wine,
And
yes.
You're an age connoisseur.
I do.
Enjoy aging?
I get better as I age, I think.
Some people. I don't know if Laura, your wife, would say that. But if you're into the more mature housing models, we've got 5 areas you need to check out before you sign on the dotted line for that quaint, historic, charming money pit. Also, a recap of last week. We had a guest, Dan Lynch, shared his best tips for first-time home buyers. Nathan Carlisle, certified mortgage planner with First Trust, told us about a couple programs that require 0 down payment, even shared some low down payment options that are readily available with less restrictions, and you can check those out, the entirety of that show, if you go to the podcast. Great information there. Next week, we're going to begin our 3-part springtime series on taking care of the roof over your head. It's your biggest investment. Don't neglect it. We've got your springtime maintenance tips, a checklist to make sure you accomplish those tips, how to save the most on your utilities, on your utility bill, and some great suggestions to cut your tax bill. You want to tune in for that. And as always, we've got the should you stay or should you go scenario coming up later in the hour, and Dave is going to update us on where rates are and where they're trending. Remember, folks, if you're hearing us for the first time, again, thanks for joining us. You can podcast the show. If you've got questions, we want to be your source. We want to give you the answers. We want to give you the scoop. If you call 800-492-4664, that's 800-492-4664, just leave a message if someone doesn't answer. We will respond quickly. You may get to speak to Craig Miller himself. Maybe, heck, ask for Dave Brown if you like what you hear on the radio today. He will give you some candid, straightforward advice, and we will do our very best to make sure you are educated and getting the real scoop. Okay, You ready? You ready, Dave?
I'm
So you're
born ready.
I appreciate
Let's do it.
again. I do appreciate you taking time out of your busy day, and I've got to mention here, Dave is not just your typical, lackey that does a radio show and doesn't have a real job. He is someone that actually hits the very top of the charts in the mortgage industry in Kansas and Missouri. He is the top producer, one if not the very top. I don't know the latest polls, right? We're at the very top this time. Do you know by state level?
I don't think we've seen it yet.
Okay, but last year he was at the very top. He and Craig Miller both were at the very top of the list in total production. It is the real deal. Not many people in the United States, definitely not in Kansas and Missouri, where our headquarters are, not many people in the United States originate more loans than this guy, and I can tell you nobody does it at a higher quality. So, there you are, Dave. You're on. That's a pretty high bar, and I've sucked up appropriately to the guest who has been kind enough to join me for the next hour. You want to talk interest rates. Share the averages, and then tell our listeners what your crystal ball says.
All right. This is where it gets exciting. We're going to start talking about numbers. Interest rates right now, we'll kind of start off with where we're sitting, and we can talk a little bit about where we might be going. 30-year fixed rates, the national average per Bankrate.com is at 4 3/8 on average, paying 0.6% in loan discount points. 15-year fixed rates on average at 3.4%, paying on average 0.8% in loan discount, and the 5-year adjustable rate mortgage at 3.39%, paying roughly 0.5% in loan discount.
And tell our listeners what a loan discount is and what 0.5% means.
Absolutely. So loan discount means you're paying a little extra in fees to effectively buy your rate down. So if the loan discount, it's a cost. If it were 0, the rate would be a little higher. And 1 point is 1% of the loan amount. So 0.8 of a point is 0.8% of the loan amount. So if you borrowed $100,000, that'd be on 0.8 of a point, it'd be an extra $800 in costs to get that interest rate.
And also, does that rate and those discount points, what else do you have to pay to get that deal?
I'm surprised you don't know that, Mark.
You're the expert. You're the rate expert, my friend.
You pay transactional closing costs, things like a fee to your lender, an appraisal fee, credit reports, title fees. Some municipalities have local mortgage taxes.
Yeah. So it could range anywhere from $1,500 on the low end up to $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $8,000, $9,000 and beyond.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
So you got to make sure you do the break-even formula if you're going to refinance and you think you're saving some money on that interest rate. Make sure you know how long it's going to take to recoup the investment of the dollars you may have rolled into that loan, or maybe you just paid them out of pocket. All right, good stuff. You're good. You're a natural. Dave's been on the show before. It's just been a little while. He's too busy actually doing real hard work, not just jumping on air and.
I thought I wasn't on the show because I'm
Bloviating.
not as entertaining as Craig. Is that
Well, you're not as good looking as I am. You're not as entertaining as Craig. I
There
guess.
we go.
Okay, there you go.
Okay.
All right, so we've got. You're buying your first home. Okay, maybe it's your second, third, or fourth. Here are 6 mistakes. These are the mistakes you don't want to make, folks. This is the art of how not to negotiate if you do these things. So let's jump into these. Not understanding the motivation of the seller. Number 1 tip if you're buying anything is understand what it is that your seller is motivated by. If it's a home negotiation, you got to look at the opposite side. Try to sit on their side. Make sure you get as much information about them. Are they relocating? Has the house been on the market a long time? Do you kind of look around and see that there's no furniture in the house? Make sure you understand what their motivation is. If you don't understand it, you're probably going to be leaving money on the table in the form of a negotiation. Number 2 is, Dave, what's number 2?
Number 2, not doing your homework.
Yes. What are some examples of homework that, you know what? We're going to give some examples of the homework you should be doing before you negotiate on your real estate purchase when we come back from this break. And we've also got Renee is holding, so we're going to get those home buyer tips and that story you won't want to miss. Life as you own it. Stay tuned. All right, we're back. Life as you own it. And again, excited to be in Phoenix, Arizona. So welcome aboard. I'm Mark McDougald. He is Dave Brown. And on the line, we are pleased to have Renee Lukes. Renee, can you hear us okay? Great, you sound awesome, Renee. You are just coming in loud and clear from you in College Station, Texas, correct?
That's correct, Mama. The happy man.
All right, well, folks, we were kind of and Renee, and you can jump in here right now. We're in the middle of giving them some things they don't want to do. If they skip these, they're probably not going to get their best deal on their home purchase. So if you want to opine as I go through here, or Dave and I go through them, you jump right in. So number one was understand the motive. If you don't understand the motivation of your seller, you're probably not going to get your best deal. Number two is if you don't do your homework, you're probably not going to get your best deal. And Dave was given some a little bit of elaboration on number two. Elaborate away, my friend.
Well, one is, and you need to lean on a good realtor for help with this, but you need to know the comparables, you need to know what homes are selling for in the market, you know, the houses you're looking at, how many days have they been on market, you know, what are the dynamics of the market, are houses selling fast or slow? In our community right now, inventory's thin, so good houses are moving fast, you gotta be prepared to move quickly, and you have to know what's going on in the sandbox you're playing in.
There you go. Another one is walk around the neighborhood. When you're walking around, talk with some of the neighbors. And ask them, because you may find, I have done this before, don't know if it got me a better deal or not, but you may find information about why that person is moving. It might be, that you wouldn't otherwise know. They relocated, or A, they couldn't afford the house, or hey, there's a nasty divorce, whatever it may be. That information is power in the form of negotiation. All right, number three is showing your cards. Often, right out of the gate, someone may come out and say, I'm a cash buyer, and they're making their first offer. Well, if you're a cash buyer to me, I don't know, Dave, if someone comes in and say, I'm going to buy your house for cash, do you think they have more money or less money?
That's not the norm, so that sounds pretty good to hear if you're a seller, I would say.
Yeah, I'm probably going to assume that I don't need to bend as much on my price as I would if they don't come in saying they're buying cash right out of the gate. So the key thing is don't show or don't come in and say, oh my gosh, we've got to close in 30 days, or we'd be willing to pay anything to close in 30 days because our other house is selling X and we got to be out of it in 2 weeks. Do not give away your negotiation points. Anything you want to add on there, Renee? When you negotiate, don't negotiate. Don't negotiate if you've got no other options. In other words, be careful as you negotiate when you have no other options. If you've got a specific property, make sure you've identified several others that you'd be equally happy in or close to equally happy in. That will give you a much greater position of leverage if you know that you can walk away from that deal, and also make sure, as tactfully as you can, that the seller or the seller's agent knows that you have other options. Dave, anything? Renee, anything to add on there? Sound good?
Sounds good to me.
All right.
That sounds good to me.
Another mistake that people make is remaining anonymous. You found the house you love, and I think this is a great one. I've given this for you. You found a house you love in the quaint neighborhood you love, and you really like it. If you can meet the owners of that house face to face, if they can personalize this negotiation, it's a lot easier to negotiate with somebody and be hardball with them, etc., if you never see them, if they're a nameless, faceless person. But once you see them there, sweetly smiling with their family or whatever it is, looking at your house, they'll negotiate hard with somebody via email, via phone, via a third-party realtor, but it's a lot harder for them to hardball negotiate when they know the face of the person that they're negotiating with. All right, number 6 is don't get personal. So, or I should say, sometimes people do. They take it personally, and that's a mistake. Remember, your goal is to purchase the home, not beat the seller. Don't let your ego get in the way of getting the home you want for a fair price. How many times do you hear of people, they're $500 away on a deal, and you go, are you getting, and I'd ask them, do you believe you're getting a great deal on the house? Yes. But they wouldn't come off $500. It's don't let your ego get in the way of getting yourself a great deal on a house that you love. Any elaboration on that, team?
No, I think that's...
But I was going to point out, and what I was going to say too was that don't lose sight of the goal. It's very easy to get caught up in negotiating the best deal, the
All right. So, Renee, you're warmed up now, right? Done the vocal cords. You go me, 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 me. Okay. Well, Renee is a 20-year real estate veteran from College Station, Texas. And as I mentioned in the open, she is an associate of Clay Lee, who I was speaking to last night or earlier this week and talking to him about real estate, maybe having him as a guest on the show. And Clay and my wife both were on season 4. Renee, I'm sure you've been subjected to many stories and potentially many videos of their travails with Donald Trump on The Apprentice.
Oh, yes, I have.
I can't, every time you Google Felicia Mason, and now people are probably going to do Google Felicia Mason and The Apprentice, the first video that comes up is of her tears running down her face as she's crying. I can't even make my wife cry, but Donald could. Now people, but she's a lot smarter than I don't think I'd make it on The Apprentice. And Clay, they became good friends while they're on the show together. And as a real estate professional, he said, when I talked to him about discussing some first-time home buyers, he said he's got the perfect person in Renee to share a story and then give some great tips. So Renee, you officially are on the Life as You Own It hot seat. You ready?
Wow, I'm ready.
Oh.
Thank you, Mark. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, first-time home buyers, you've got a story.
I do have a story. You know, it's a real good for the fairly skilled one of the largest purchases that they're ever going to make. But over the course of my career, you know, there's times when although I think what's out there is serious, you just have to laugh. And I was saying, I'm talking to a mother and her congregating daughter, we were at the end of the church at that day, and I was looking at several homes. The last house we went into, we kind of entered in anyway, of course, after mom and all that. And as we're standing in the entryway, kind of looking over the second living room and taking in the whole house, the door to our right opens up, and out steps this freshly showered young man who was wearing absolutely nothing but his surprised look. We all just kind of looked at each other. I didn't really know what to say at that point. I apologized. He turned and just wandered on down the hall like it was no big deal. And my client's daughter turned to her mother and said, "I'll make this work."
That's awesome. And what did she think about the house?
She actually came out of the house and I had to remind her that it was not coming furnished.
That's a good one, Renee. I like it. How many stories are there out there like that? There's probably more than a handful, folks. So she didn't end up buying the house, but she definitely had interest in the appliances. All right. So you've got some. Share with us some tips that you may have for our first-time home buyer listening audience. And I'll let you know right now. We're just going to give you your first one, and then we're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back and share the rest of those.
Well, I was thinking about some of the things, and one of the obvious ones, of course, is to pick a great lender and get pre-approved. And that goes hand in hand with choosing an agent that trusted representation wisely. That agent is working with that lender and keeping coordinated and moving forward. And to have the right as a first-time home buyer or any home buyer to actually review agents and find one that you can work with and will put your trust in. Buying a home can be so stressful, and it's so much smoother if you and your agent are able to communicate well, and you feel that the agent has the best interest at heart.
You know what, Renee? That's a good warm-up, and your timing is impeccable. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we've got some more tips from Renee, and maybe Dave will share a funny story. Life as You Own It. Stay tuned. All right, I'm Mark McDougall, the Life as You Own It, and I have a team of solid professionals here. Dave Brown, my counterpart, is discussing mortgage finance and so much more. And we have Renee Lukes, 20-year real estate veteran, is giving our new homeowners, new home buyers, first-time home buyers, whatever we're going to call you today, she's giving them the goods and what they need to know as they're moving down the path of their single largest investment. So Renee, your first tip was that make sure they get pre-approved, work with a strong mortgage planner, loan officer that gives them great advice, and also find an agent that has their best interest in heart. What's number 2?
And this kind of goes on with what you and Dave were talking about earlier. Be willing to make compromises. Maybe a 3-bedroom with a study home is going to work just as well as a 4-bedroom would.
You know, I think a lot of us, when we're in the home shopping process, we're a little bit of we're real estate voyeurs. We like get online and start looking at all these homes, and next thing you know, we're strolling through home number 350, and before we forget what we were looking for in the first place. So okay, that's great advice. Next on the list, you're doing fantastic, Renee. I think our listeners are going to probably want you to, because you got that nice, sweet Southern drawl. Probably going to want to hear you a little more frequently than they hear Craig and now Dave and I.
Okay, now, I don't think I have the southern drawl, but I'll
Oh yeah, you said yeah. You're from Boston, right?
I think another tip would be not to
Okay, now y'all, could that be one person or would that be more than one person? Because if you have just checking, I just wanted to clarify for our northern listeners, our northern listening audience, you know. So we go from Alabama all the way up to Ohio presently, other than our podcast listeners and our iHeartRadio listeners, and we do get Syracuse, New York, for some reason, has historically been a hotbed of where we get feedback from listeners. We do span, but right now our stations go from Alabama up to Ohio would be probably the farthest north today. You could. That would be what, Dave? What would that be? Minnesota?
You guys.
You guys? Minnesota or Canada? All right. So, okay. And fourth on your list of hot tips, or fifth?
you know, buying your first home can be so exciting, but it could also be a stressful time. And it's important that you have representation. Just have to reiterate that again. You know, as a realtor, what I like to do is have my clients come into the office. You know, first they call you on the line and like, oh, we can move here right away. You know what? An agent that's willing to do that is not really going to meet your needs. You can come into the office and you can visit with them about what you want and what you need. And as you sit down and talk about these things, you can kind of find out that maybe for the first time the husband and wife are sitting there going, oh, I didn't realize that, a three-car garage was high on this priority. And really, the husband is non-negotiable on that. So, I think it's important to sit down and just really have an interview where you can visit with the client and the client can visit with the agent. All the name on the sign, you're not getting represented. It's important that you take a look at it.
Good information, Renee. And I've got a question for you. What do you like best about selling real estate?
You know what I really like best, and I hope that the way I mean it too, is that for me, that a family or that a person that allows me to feel well for a very short amount of time, help them find a way that their family can have all of their family time, you know, the Christmases, the Hanukkahs, the birthdays, whatever, that they would allow me to help them achieve. Where that's going to happen, it's so powerful to me, and it just means so much, whether I'm helping someone, you know, in $100,000 price range, or someone in $1 million price range. You know, it's about helping them find a home and not just a house.
Wow, no better way to end our discussion with you, Renee, because if Corey Hart were singing right now, he'd be singing that old ballad, Straight from the Heart. Is that Corey Hart? Am I right there?
Brian Adams.
Brian
Brian
Adams.
Adams, I think Corey Hart was
whatever,
wearing
that's
his
not-
sunglasses inside. Isn't there?
Straight from the heart. That was Dave singing. Listeners, that was Dave, not Mark. He sings a little better than that. All right, well, Renee, thank you so much for joining us. A shout out to any of your friends or family, because this is a podcast show.
Oh, well, I think we definitely have to say hi, Clay, enjoy your ski trip. You'll be out skiing today, so.
All right, Renee, thanks a bunch for being a guest. We appreciate you. Keep up the hard work and stay classy. All right, trivia quiz, Dave. Who's that? What group is that?
I know my wife would know. Maroon 5. Okay.
Wow, you're good. Oh my gosh, was he giving a like holding his breath, his face turned red, and then held up 5?
Yeah, exactly.
Probably what I'd do. All right, you're good.
All my girls would know that.
I'm sure they would. Your girls got 4 ladies at the
4
house.
ladies, that's right.
Yeah.
It's crowded over there.
Yeah, and that's probably why you always dress with such, I don't know, feminine
Yes.
kind of you have a nice look going on there.
It's all picked up by females.
Okay, well, good timing. You know the folks, you know the drill. If you're a first-time listener, well, we'll explain it to you real quickly. This music means we've got a scenario from an email or a call-in where you tell us what your situation is, and we tell you whether you should move out of that loan, move out of that home, move out of that relationship, or you should just stay the course. All right, Ellen and Steve in Blue Springs, Missouri. We currently owe $72,000 on our house that's worth around $100,000. Our current rate is 4.5% on a 30-year fixed. We've heard rates are in the high 2s. Should we refinance? 72,000, 4.5%, 30-year fixed. That's all the information you have, Dave. You want to take a shot at that? Should they stay or should they go?
Well,
Too much time. I like to do that with. It's supposed to be like the lightning round, where you've got 3 seconds based upon the information you have to give them the best answer you can give.
okay, 3 seconds.
3 seconds.
I think they should stay put.
Stay put.
They've got a pretty good rate on their 30-year fixed mortgage. They got a $72,000 loan, and one bad thing about most costs related to financing don't change much based on loan size. So even if they went to, they've heard rates are in the 2s. Those are probably 5-year ARMs or something crazy. Any savings they would generate on interest would be probably overwhelmed by the closing costs. If they did their cost-benefit analysis, probably take them 10 years to recover their money, which isn't worth it.
There you go. Good job. So
Was that 3 seconds? Or
that was
12 seconds.
You explained the answer, but you got the right answer out right away. So
Okay.
nice work. Okay, so Dave.
Yes.
We're talking about first-time home buyers.
First time.
You have worked with a few in your day, and as a mortgage planner, what is it that what advice would you give them as they're considering this big investment?
What it is.
What it is. That's
what
right.
it is.
What it be?
That depends on what the definition of is. But all right. So one of the things I think is important, and I think this is especially important for first-time home buyers, but I think any buyers, and this will sound biased, but I think you need to come in and pick a lender and talk about numbers first. Because if you start looking at houses, you need to know what you can afford, what's comfortable in your budget, and understand the numbers and how those numbers move up or down based on the houses you're looking at. Because if you're looking at houses that range from 140 to 170, I can tell you which house you're going to like better when you walk into it. The $170,000 house is going to be nicer. When we put the numbers on paper, I can tell you which payment you're going to like better. So I always tell people, find out your max payment, understand it, and then be disciplined. And if you're only comfortable with payments that put you in a $160,000 house, don't go look at a $190,000 house, because you're going to be disappointed. And that literally, I deal with people on all ends of the spectrum. Some people are looking at 110 to 150. Some people are looking at 300 to 400. And even though I don't get to see the houses, I always know which one they're going to like best. So know the numbers, be disciplined, and don't tempt yourself to make a bad decision and put yourself in a financial strap because you looked into a house that you just fell in love with.
There you go. Okay, first-time home buyer is coming in, and they're going to apply for that first mortgage real quickly. And we know, what are some of the things that you're going to ask them for?
Let's see, blood type.
Yeah.
So basically the main things are employment. Where do you? It's an interrogation. I usually tell people. So
Right.
Where do you work? How long you been there? How much do you make? What kind of money? What's your down payment and your reserves? And we're going to pull credit. So we're going to look at the credit score, debt to income ratio, down payment, and reserves.
All right.
And more important than what we can approve people for, because even in this day and age, people can probably still borrow more money than they would ever want to.
Right.
Is what they're comfortable paying. So we go through the approval, but more important than that, we talk about what their comfort level is.
So get ready for the interrogation, and the bottom line is whatever you say will have to be supported in the form of paperwork.
That's
so
right.
if you say you got $10,000 in the bank, they're going to have to document the $10,000, and it's ideally not $10,000 that was just put in there in 10 deposits of $1,000 each over a 3-day gambling spree in Vegas. Though that would be funds you could possibly use.
That,
Maybe.
potentially.
Maybe not. That opens up another can of worms. Okay. Dave, have you ever purchased an old house?
I have.
Okay. How old was it?
It was probably about 80 years old, my very
That's
first
pretty old
house.
house.
Yeah. Stone
right.
basement.
Oh, yeah. So you personally have probably experienced some of the things that we're going to tell our listeners to look out for when they purchase their very own old, quaint, historic house. Now, depending on where you're located, there could be on the coast, on the east, the farther you go east, the older a lot of the houses are. Farther, it makes sense, the farther you move to the west, you don't run into those 200-year-old Boston
That's right.
brownstones. So we want to make sure that you know what you need to look for. There's some pros and cons of buying an old house. The biggest pro is they look pretty quaint, look pretty cool, they're neat, they're charming. They also may have used, at the time, they probably used materials that were very good, most of them. The difference is, even if they were the best materials, they have been at use for 100 years. So we want to make sure that you check these major components out before you go for the cute, charming house. And number one is, like any long-term relationship, you need a solid foundation. First thing you need to do is go into that basement. Before you go in the living room and bedrooms and look around there, you got to look around the basement, check for cracks, signs of shifting. Also, check for mold, because that can be a bigger issue, i.e. leaking and/or foundation issues. Get a home inspection, and if they notice anything, you got to get a foundation inspection. It will save you a ton of money. It is expensive to fix a foundation. When we come back, we've got more things you need to look out for when you're buying that old home. All right, last segment. Mark McDougald, Dave Brown, and Craig Miller. Get well soon, buddy. We miss you. Okay, we were talking old homes, like a fine wine, except one key thing. They don't necessarily taste better as they get older. So you got to be careful. Look out for these things. Number one, we said, hey, check out the foundation. Make sure you don't have any issues there that you're going to need to repair, or, as Dave and I discussed off air, that you're comfortable. Dave brought up a good point. Dave, what was it about an old home?
If you have an 80-year-old home, it's seen 80 summers and 80 winters and springs and falls. So you go down to the basement. I mean, if it's moved, it's got some leaks. It is what it is. So like, I had an old home, and I just knew I'm never going to finish that basement, but don't need to, and it's just storage. It's going to get a little wet when it rains.
All right. Okay, the roof. Okay, I wrote this out as I write this. The roof is made of plywood. Okay, I don't know what that means, other than the fact that if you don't have a good, solid roof, or you don't know what's under all those layers of shingles, it's probably going to be pretty expensive for you. You want to know that cost going in. Sometimes you don't know what you're going to find up in the roof, in the underlayment, around the gutters, etc., if you don't do a thorough roof inspection on an old home. What are the materials that were used? You could have stuff that's got asbestos up in the roof. What is in there? Strongly encourage you to do a thorough roof inspection, because it's one thing to just put shingles on, that's not real expensive, but to take a lot of stuff off, do fix wood rot, etc., that can be a little more expensive.
And one other, and this is more of probably a Kansas City metro area issue, we have a lot of houses with wood shake roofs here. Very expensive to insure.
Right.
A lot of insurance companies don't want them, so you pay a lot more for your homeowner's insurance if you have a wood shake roof, even if it's in good shape.
There you go. Oh, there's the music. All right. Should you stay or should you go? Remember, you've got a question, you've got a scenario, email us or call us. Questions at lifeisyourowner.com or 800-492-4664. We are here for you. Seth and Shelley in Paris, Illinois. Guys, we were given some land by our parents and want to build on it. It's farmland and probably worth about $150,000. We are going to use this as down payment and build a $200,000 house. Should we do a loan amount of $200,000 to build the house, or should we borrow more than the house will cost to build so we can invest? We've been podcasting the show, and we thought this sounded like a better option for us to get ahead. Wow. That's a lot of information. That's a beefy question, isn't it?
Well, they're not going anywhere, so we know where they're staying.
We like the way they're thinking.
We know they're staying.
Yep.
So...
Yeah, what do you... I don't know how you... That's a tough shit. Some of the questions are hard to give a stay.
All right, so stay there. Sounds like a neat piece of property.
Yep.
And take a loan. If you're disciplined, borrow a little more, invest the difference. never take a loan amount that will create a payment you're uncomfortable with. So make sure you're comfortable with the payment, be disciplined, invest the difference, don't blow it, invest it with long-term horizon, and enjoy your brand new home on your farm acreage.
All right. You the man. Good work. Okay, folks, we are going to give you the last 2 or 3 here, and then we're going to have to go. Another show under the belt. Number 3, flushing money down the toilet. How old is the plumbing? If the house still has the original cast iron pipes, then you might need to replace them eventually because of mineral buildup, corrosion, or leaks. Get down in the basement, check the plumbing. If it's galvanized, be careful. It's going to be expensive to replace, but you will need to replace it. It's just a matter of when. Number 4, how hot do you get when you see the heating bill? Old radiators may add character, but they're an expensive way to heat a house. Check the last couple of years' heating bills to see what price you're going to be paying for this charm. And also a lack of static electricity. If you've owned one of those with radiators, you don't get the forced air, so not as much static. You won't need to use as much bounce. If the home has central heat, then check to see how old the furnace is. This is another very expensive component to replace in your house. Number 5, don't get shocked. Check out that electricity. Many old homes still have the original knob and tube wiring, and although it works, it can pose a fire hazard, especially in the attic. Also, how many times you're going to be running down and flipping those breakers because it just can't carry the load of today's components. All right, those are the 5, folks. If you want to listen to the show because I spoke too fast, go to lifeisyownit.com. You can podcast it. We thank you for checking us out. Dave, any final words of wisdom?
Hey, stay classy. Join us next week.
Amen.